Kim Jong-un's massive troop buildup for Vladimir Putin. Ukrainian President Zelensky warning Russia wants another 30,000 troops from North Korea to fight on the front line. Now, Putin facing a hard reality at home, which is that the average lifespan of a Russian soldier from training to combat is only between 10 days to 3 weeks, according to Foreign Policy magazine and British intelligence. Will Ripley is out front.
At a cemetery for North Korea's fallen soldiers this weekend, Kim Jong-un, his wife, and daughter walked past the graves of Korean War dead. Now, Ukraine says Kim could send 30,000 more North Korean troops into another war. For Russian President Vladimir Putin, Kim sent more than 100 soldiers to march in Moscow's Victory Day parade in May. South Korea and Western militaries estimate more than 10,000 North Korean troops helped Russian forces recapture the Kursk region. And soon, Putin may be getting something even bigger from his partner in Pyongyang, says Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, set to meet President Trump tomorrow in the Oval Office, a White House official says. Russia wants to bring in another 30,000 North Korean troops, Zelensky says, adding Ukraine's military has solid reports. Preparations are underway to receive them. He says they're headed to southwestern Russia, about 150 miles from Ukraine's border. Zelensky says Kim may also be sending several ballistic missile launchers. North Korean missiles are a lethal part of Putin's war machine. Ukraine says they're growing more accurate with every strike. Russia is helping North Korea learn how to wage war, improve its weapons, and gain real combat experience, Zelensky says. Kim built a new war memorial in Pyongyang with thousands of graves and space for many more. Ukraine's military estimates more than 6,000 North Koreans have already been injured or killed fighting for Russia, part of Putin and Kim's deepening anti-West, anti-U.S. alliance. A drastically different outcome than the vision of Kim's grandfather, North Korea's founder Kim Il-sung, who once hosted former U.S. President Jimmy Carter.
And I recall Kim Il-sung saying to me, we want to have good relations with the United States. That's all gone now.
Former CNN Beijing bureau chief Mike Chinoy made 17 reporting trips to North Korea. He says after Trump's diplomacy collapsed, Kim made a hard pivot to Russia and never looked back.
And I don't think he's interested anymore in having that kind of relationship because I don't think he trusts the United States.
Instead, Ukraine says Kim is betting big on Moscow, a bet that could soon mean another 30,000 North Korean troops fighting for Russia. And tonight, despite thousands of North Korean troops fighting for Russia, only two are known to have been captured alive, Aaron. Ukrainian officials say that's because North Korean soldiers are under orders to avoid capture at all costs. Kim Jong-un has even praised what state media called soldiers who self-blasted with grenades rather than surrender. Ukrainian forces say some North Korean soldiers have even shouted Kim's name before pulling the pin on those grenades, Aaron.
Wow. Will Ripley, thank you very much.
Joining me now is Evelyn Farkas, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia, currently Executive Director at the McCain Institute. Evelyn, good to have you back.
Thank you, Jim. Likewise, it's great to be back.
So first, the experience of North Korean soldiers on the Ukrainian front lines has not been good, based on CNN and others reporting that the casualty rate has been enormously high, much as it has been for Russian forces there. Is this strategically significant for North Korea if they were to send 30,000 troops? Do you see that changing the dynamic on the front line?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to first add to what Mike Chinoy said, because I went to North Korea, including to Yongbyon, the nuclear facility, in 2008, when President George W. Bush was trying to make a deal with the North Koreans also to freeze their nuclear weapons program. So, unfortunately, we are way past that time. And North Korea really is clearly aligned now with Russia in a way that actually makes China somewhat uncomfortable. But the North Koreans, this providing 30,000 troops isn't going to change anything radically on the battlefield, between Ukraine and Russia. But what it does for North Korea, Jim, is it gets North Korea some deals. I mean, and we have reason to believe, based on reporting and sources in the U.S. intelligence community, that which were reported upon, that the North Koreans got some technology from Russia to improve their missile capabilities. So space, intellectual property pertaining to space, that they also are helping the North Koreans, that Russia is also helping the North Koreans with nuclear submarine technology. So these things are really valuable to Kim Jong-un. So I think he'll say, yeah, I'll keep sending the troops.
So this is already an expansion of Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine to have North Korea, a fellow nuclear power, involved. Now you have Ukraine striking Iranian ships, bringing drones to Russia. And of course, those Iranian Shahed drones have had enormous deadly impact on Ukraine. And you also have, of course, the Houthis now threatening shipping in the Red Sea. Just as you see a new front in the Iran war and a connection between the Iran war and the Ukraine war, does that give you fears of just a broader regional escalation?
No, Jim, only because they've been helping one another all along. It just hasn't been as public. You heard Zelensky saying that Russia provided, intelligence to the Iranians to target U.S. forces in the Middle East. The Iranians have been providing they provided the first Shahed drones to Russia, which then Russia improved upon and then sent back the technologically improved drones to Iran. So they've been collaborating all along. China, of course, sells to both sides in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But I think we need to understand that these are adversaries working together, and this just makes it much more obvious because it's out there now in the Middle East.
Kim, let's start with Ukraine, as that's the first meeting that's going to happen this morning, and it's part of Lindsey Graham's legacy as well. How different are the circumstances are you seeing, viewing, and hearing, and the relationship between Trump and Zelensky now versus what we've seen between those two men in the past?
Well, it's definitely warmed up, and President Zelensky is coming in with the backdrop of winning on the battlefield. At least that is the perception worldwide, that Ukraine is really getting some traction, especially the way it is menacing Moscow and St. Petersburg. President Putin just had a Navy Day parade yesterday, which was just 40 sailors in front of a big mural of a submarine, whereas in the past it was several, dozens of ships, submarines, thousands of troops. But 2 years in a row, they've had to cancel that because of the drone threat from the Ukrainians. So that is the kind of thing that makes Zelensky look like he's winning to Trump. And Zelensky is also bringing intelligence to back up his claims over the weekend that Russia is sharing satellite imagery with Iran to help Iran strike U.S. targets in the Gulf.